Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive for UFC 141, Lesnar versus Overeem. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and this event will take place live on December 30th, 2011, and keep this in mind, because New Year's Eve falls on a Saturday, the UFC has bumped this event up to Friday, so do not miss out. Come on Saturday night and expect to be watching a UFC event, because you will have missed it. So UFC 141 will take place on Friday, December 30th, 2011, last event of 2011, which was a great year for MMA. For this event, I'll be predicting all 5 main card fights and 5 preliminary fights. There are 6 prelims. I'm not going to predict one of the fights. I just can't get a read on it either way, so I'm going to predict 5 and 5. For the Grand Prix prediction tournament, this is the final event of the 3rd round. We're going to be predicting all 11 fights. I'll send the email out as soon as possible. You can check out the scores in the ticker bar below. Some very close matchups. Following this event, the final 4 will be set in the tournament. We'll kick that off in the new year, 2012. Before getting into my predictions, SportsInteraction.com has provided us with the 5 main card betting options, the betting odds, plus 1 preliminary. The rest of the odds will be posted closer to the date. And they also make available betting on Fight of the Night, a new option they're providing us with. I think I've got a pretty good beat on Fight of the Night, so you'll have to watch for my Certified Overdrive Fight of the Night, which I'll do later on. It'll probably play 2.5, maybe even 3.5 to 1. I think it's almost a lock to be Fight of the Night, so that's some guaranteed money in my opinion. Now, as always, MMABettingOdds.com, another fantastic website. Please check them out. MMACrips.com, thank you very much for posting my videos. As always, appreciate that greatly. And before moving on, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. If you're celebrating Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. And now let's go talk about some violence. Here are my preliminary picks. Alright, it's time to kick off the preliminary predictions. First up, we're in the featherweight division for Diego Nunes versus Manny Gambaryan. This is a matchup of Manny's power and Diego's speed. Diego's had trouble with grapplers in the past, getting taken down several times by Kenny Florian, Matt Brown, and his first career defeat against L.C. Davis. He is a dynamic striker, but the judo skills of Gambaryan will give him all kinds of trouble. In the 3 aforementioned fights, he lost 2 and won the fight with Brown because Brown gassed and couldn't continue to complete his takedowns. I'll take Gambaryan in a bit of an upset, and I'll take him by decision. Jacob Volkman versus Efrain Escudero. Now, Escudero is returning to the UFC to face a man that is undefeated in 4 fights since dropping to 155. Escudero's had trouble with wrestlers in the past, and Volkman has gone 15 for 19 in takedown attempts in his last 4 fights, including matchups with solid wrestlers like Danny Castillo and Antonio McKee. Volkman could submit Escudero. I expect that Efrain will do enough to defend the submission, but not enough to keep off his back. Jacob Volkman by decision. Next, moving to the welterweight division, Young Kim versus Sean Pearson. Kim's grappling will push Pearson until his cardio breaks, but Kim isn't a finisher with 7 decisions and 14 career wins. This fight will probably spell the end of the line for Sean Pearson. I'll take Young Kim by decision. Anthony Njokuani versus Danny Castillo, a perfect example of a striker versus a grappler. Njokuani is a dynamic striker, while Castillo is a grappler training under BJJ expert Cesar Gracie. If Njokuani can keep the fight standing, this is his fight to win, but if Castillo can take him down, he should be able to exploit Njokuani's lack of ground skills. I'll take Castillo to win this bout by ground and pound TKO. And finally, Ross Pearson versus Junior Asuncao. I wasn't overly impressed with Asuncao in his last fight. While Pearson looked very good and could have easily been given a win against Edson Barboza, my biggest concern for Pearson is that this is his first cut to featherweight. If he has no issues with the drop in weight, I like his striking and expect he should be able to get the better of Asuncao standing and prevent the takedowns. I'll take Ross Pearson to win this bout by TKO. To start the main card, we are in the featherweight division of 17-10 Nam Pham. We'll take an undefeated Jimmy the Kid Hedis 9-0. Hedis started his UFC career with a win, while Pham earned his first official UFC victory in his last appearance. Both fighters enter this bout with notable but extremely different fights on their resumes. Pham's 2-fight miniseries with Leonard Garcia was a slugfest, Garcia throwing wild haymakers and Pham implementing tactically sound boxing, creating an exciting pair of fights. Hedis was paired with Alex Caceres in his debut, and similar to the Garcia-Pham fights, Hedis-Caceres was also non-stop action. The difference was the action came primarily on the mat in the form of submission attempts and constant transitions. In the end, Hedis earned the submission victory, which continued a stretch of 9 professional fights and another 4 amateur bouts that Hedis has won by submission. Hedis began his pro career with 6 first-round submission wins using a wide variety of moves, actually 5 in total in his first 6 victories. Against Caceres, he showed excellent transitions, continually attacking with subs. He went 5 of 9 in takedowns, completing an excellent judo throw, which reflects his judo brown belt. Now, Nam Phan's a BJJ black belt with 5 submissions of his own while never having been tapped out. He has solid takedown defensive numbers at 59%. Mike Brown did find some success taking Phan down 5 times, but it took him 18 attempts. In that bout, Brown had to use a lot of strength in order to get Phan to the ground, getting in deep with a shot and eventually dragging him to the mat. As the fight progressed, Nam's defense continually got better, using both the whizzer and a Kimura to keep Brown off of him. And after the first round, whenever Brown did get him down, Nam was able to get up to his feet very quickly. Hedis' goal will be to get this fight to the ground, which could prove difficult, and even if he does get Phan down, I'm not sold on his ability to control or even submit him. In fact, he really struggled to maintain control at points against Bruce Leroy, and I feel that Phan is a step above his previous competition. What this fight will come down to is the striking. I haven't seen a lot of Hedis' striking because, again, he relies so heavily on his ground game. Conversely, we've seen a great deal of Nam Phan striking. He has excellent head movement, targets the body with a vicious left hook, and he continually changes angles, which makes him incredibly hard to defend against. Overall, he lands 5.52 strikes per minute, and in his fights with Leonard Garcia, he maintained distance nicely, closing to attack and moving away to avoid his opponent. Hedis had success against Caceres because every time Caceres got separation, he dove back in instead of creating distance. Phan won't make that mistake, so my prediction is Nam Phan to outstrike his opponent and defeat Jimmy Hedis by TKO. In the light heavyweight division, Vladimir the Janitor Matyushenko, 26-5, will battle 12-1 Alexander the Mauler Gustafsson. Vladdy's been on a tear, winning 5 of his last 6, while Gustafsson has won 3 in a row with a 4-1 overall mark in the UFC. The winner of this matchup will put themselves in a position to challenge the upper echelon of the division. Each man has had recent experience fighting top-level competition. Vladdy got stopped by now champion John Jones, while Gustafsson was submitted by top contender Phil Davis. After his loss in that fight, the Mauler went to train with Davis, which could play a significant role in this bout. Gustafsson is making significant improvements in his ground game. He is a BJJ purple belt with 3 submission victories, 2 of them coming over his last 3 wins, and he has shown decent takedown defense at 88%. Matyushenko is a veteran of the mat game, a former Soviet Union wrestling champ. He holds 7 submission wins while never having been submitted. He averages 3.33 takedowns per fight, but it's been 4 years since Vladdy's last victory by tap-out. Now, Gustafsson has had some problems on the mat, getting taken down early by James Tahuna, although he was able to eventually recover and win a submission. And Davis was able to take him down, but Gustafsson showed admirable takedown defense in that bout. It is hard to gauge who will have the edge on the ground. Matyushenko certainly has the experience and credentials, but at 40 years old, you have to wonder if his age won't catch up to him against a much younger, physically superior, and improving opponent. On the feet, Matyushenko has been working to improve his striking, and it has shown up, earning a knockout victory over Jason Brills in his last appearance. He dropped Brills with a powerful uppercut, he has an effective left jab, and attacks well from the clinch with short punches. Now, while Vladdy is at his best in close, Gustafsson has proven himself to be effective from distance. He has 8 career knockout victories, including stopping the ultra-tough Jared Hammond. He also has a heavy uppercut. He's not afraid to take a punch to land one, and he will use kicks when available. Against Matt Hamill, he used his reach and a lot of movement to maintain distance, staying out of his opponent's reach, limiting Hamill to only 13 strikes landed. The Swede had no reach advantage against Hamill, but in this bout he will have 3 inches, which will be aided by his 5 inches of height advantage. I expect he will use a similar game plan against Vladdy, bouncing around and maintaining separation before attacking and retreating. Look for Matyushenko to take the center of the octagon and push forward, trying to cut off his opponent and catch him with a flurry of strikes. Even though Vladimir has focused more on his striking of late, when he does get in trouble, he will shoot for a takedown, but this could be difficult, again, because of the distance and movement of Gustafsson. Has been impressive of late and is capable of pulling this one out, but I like the fighter that is evolving, and I think that Gustafsson's style and physical attributes will give him a significant edge. I'll take Alexander Gustafsson to defeat Vladimir Matyushenko by TKO. In the welterweight division, former title challenger John Fitch, 26-3-1, will take on rising contender 11-1 Johnny Hendricks. Fitch is undefeated over his last 6 fights, while Hendricks has won his last 2 appearances. This bout will pit together 2 decorated collegiate wrestlers. Fitch was the captain of the Purdue wrestling team, while Hendricks won 2 national championships in 05 and 06, finished second in 07, and was a 4-time All-American. Hendricks earned the greater wrestling accolades, but as always, this is MMA, not just wrestling. Traditionally, when 2 wrestlers meet in the cage, we get a stand-up battle, but with John Fitch, that isn't always the case. In 15 UFC bouts, John Fitch has attempted 97 takedowns, completing 52.
He has a reputation as a grinder who uses his skills to control his opponent with little focus on finishing. He has 13 career decision wins, 9 in the UFC. Conversely, Johnny Hendricks has finished 50% of his fights by knockout. Numerically, Fitch lands 3.69 takedowns per fight, while Hendricks averages just over 5. On the other side of things, both men have decent takedown defense, but again, Hendricks has the superior numbers, stuffing 64% compared to 57% for Fitch. Even though Fitch has been in the cage with GSP, I believe that Hendricks has faced superior wrestling talent in fighters like Mike Pierce, Rick Story, Charlie Brenneman, and TJ Grant. I would even go as far to say that Fitch has faced opponents that were perfect matchups for him stylistically. When Fitch did face adversaries with wrestling skills, GSP dominated him, while Diego Sanchez, BJ Penn, and Mike Pierce were quite competitive. In those fights, Fitch went 2-1-1 with a split decision against Diego, and the win against Pierce was far from a dominant performance. Johnny Hendricks' lone loss came against a powerful wrestler in Rick Story, but in that bout, Johnny actually got the better of the wrestling. Story got the win because of his striking. Hendricks has never suffered more than 2 takedowns in any given fight, but John Fitch will put that to the test. Based on Hendricks' skills and past success, I think he will be a competitive matchup for Fitch in the wrestling department. If the fight remains standing, statistically, Hendricks lands more strikes per minute and lands a higher percentage than Fitch. John Fitch has 1 career knockout in the UFC, which came as the result of an up kick, while Hendricks has recorded 3 knockouts in the octagon. Fitch is a decent one, too. He will throw some kicks, and he will be aided in the striking exchanges by a 5-inch reach advantage. Now, Hendricks has shown improved striking, and the most impressive aspect of his game is his calm demeanor and ability to circle away from his opponent's advances. He has the most success in close range, throwing quick flurries along with knees from the clinch. If Fitch can dominate the wrestling, he will probably grind out another decision victory. But I believe that Hendricks will build on the past success of fighters like Mike Pierce and BJ Penn. Look for Hendricks to force John Fitch out of his comfort zone, where he will use his improving striking and power to get the better of the exchanges. I'll take the upset, Johnny Hendricks to defeat John Fitch by decision. In the co-main event of the evening, Donald Cowboy Cerrone, 17-3, will take on 14-7 Nate Diaz in the fight that is my certified overdrive fight of the night. Cerrone has won 6 in a row, while Diaz had a successful return to the 155-pound division. Both men have impressive submission numbers, combining for a total of 23 wins, and each has shown themselves to be more than competent on the feet. They are both skilled on the ground, predominantly relying on their BJJ skills over wrestling. Diaz's work from the guard is impressive, but overall, wrestlers have given Diaz the greatest amount of problems throughout his career. Fortunately, Donald Cerrone doesn't fall into that category. You have to go back 3 fights for the last time that Cerrone successfully completed a takedown, and on the heels of some of his best striking performances of his career, I don't anticipate Cowboy shooting on Diaz. If this fight goes to the ground, it will most likely be the result of a fighter getting hurt and either shooting out of desperation or crumpling and his opponent falling to the mat. It's hard to give either man an edge on the mat, and it will most likely depend on the aforementioned situation. On the feet, Nate has impressive boxing skills and was clearly getting the better of Takanori Gomi on his way to a victory by TKO until the opportunity for a submission presented itself. In similar fashion, Cerrone dropped vaunted kickboxer Dennis Seaver, but instead of pursuing the TKO, he too locked in a submission. Both fighters land roughly 3 strikes per minute. Cerrone has a 10% edge in striking accuracy, and their striking defensive numbers are almost identical. Diaz is going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, which will contribute significantly to his ability to do damage, especially with his jab. Against both Gomi and Marcus Davis, Nate was able to stay out of range, with his 2 adversaries landing only 28% of their strikes. Nate's striking style has been viewed mostly as death by accumulation, but against Gomi, he showcased impressive power, stepping into his punches and hammering away with brutal 1-2 combinations. Nate's excellent cardio allows him to attack relentlessly and maintain constant pressure, often resulting in his opponent fading in the later stages of a fight. Donald Cerrone's striking background is Muay Thai, and he has shown improving power, as we saw against Seaver, and in the fight previous, dropping Charles Oliveira with a vicious body shot. Despite their similarities, there is one major difference between Diaz and Cerrone's respective skill sets. Cerrone incorporates significantly more kicks in his repertoire. Diaz will kick, but not with the frequency nor the power of the Cowboy. Cerrone decimated Wagner Hoch's legs and the way he works them in combination with his punches makes them hard to defend against, often throwing a left hook and falling with a kick. Against Seaver, he threw a mid-range kick, and then when Seaver reacted, it created an opening for Cowboy to land a high kick, which hurt him quite badly. This element should be the difference in this fight. Diaz's striking looked the best against Davis and Gomi because they chose to strictly box with Nate. Conversely, Diaz looked average against Rory McDonald because Rory used kicks to diversify his attack, which I anticipate Cerrone will do. Take Donald Cerrone to defeat Nate Diaz by decision. In the main event of the evening, Brock Lesnar, 5-2, returns to battle former Strikeforce heavyweight champion Alistair the Reem Overeem, 35-11-1. Overeem has won 7 in a row and is undefeated in his last 11, while Brock is returning after dropping his title to Cain Velasquez. This fight comes down to a couple of scenarios. Can Lesnar take Overeem down and keep him there, or will Alistair be able to connect with his hands and knees and overwhelm Brock? Additionally, Lesnar is returning after a year away from the cage as a result of a serious illness, while Overeem has been dealing with the illness of his mother, having to return home to be with her along with other distractions. Overeem is a K1 champion kickboxer with 15 career MMA knockouts. He has big power in his hands, heavy kicks and knees to the body and head that can end a fight. Lesnar's stand-up is basic at best, but his type of power can be dangerous, as shown in the opening seconds of the Heath Herring fight. Lesnar's main concern is with getting hit. Against Shane Carwin and Cain Velasquez, he got blasted several times and reacted poorly. Overeem is going to have an exponential advantage if the fight stays standing, but in his last appearance, Alistair seemed a little hesitant against Fabricio Verdum, mainly because he was afraid of the fight going to the ground, so much so that Verdum actually landed more strikes. I expect that this could be the case against Lesnar, with one significant difference. Verdum tried to pull guard and catch Overeem when he attacked, but Lesnar will be more aggressive, looking to bull rush Overeem and put him on his back. Overeem has caught fighters in a guillotine choke who shot on him, but Lesnar's size and wrestling skills will make this difficult. Against Frank Mir and Heath Herring, two fighters relatively the same size as Overeem and equal to or better grapplers, Lesnar went 6 for 7 in takedowns and was dominant on the ground when he got it there. Lesnar's primarily a close quarters fighter. He ties up his opponent's arms using overhooks and wrist control, pins them on the wall, and either pummels away with knees and elbows or tries to drag them to the mat. On the ground, Lesnar works body on body, limiting his opponent's movement, and then unloads short, powerful punches that rendered Frank Mir unconscious. If his opponent gives up their back, Lesnar won't put his hooks in, which allows him to roll with his opponent and maintain control. Overeem did have success defending Brett Rogers' forward charge by stepping aside and using Rogers' forward momentum to send him tumbling to the ground. Now, Lesnar's struggles with Velasquez and Carwin came as a result of his inability to get the fight to the mat and maintain control. Velasquez quickly got vertical, and Carwin used a whizzer to negate Lesnar's takedown attempts. At this point, Lesnar was forced out of his comfort zone, and Overeem will present similar problems if he can defend the takedown. Alistair's knees could play a significant role. He punished Verdum in the clinch several times, but just like with his kicks, anytime he lifts his feet off the ground, he creates an opening to be taken down. Overeem has dominated his recent competition, but was underwhelming against Verdum, the most talented fighter he has fought in recent memory. Lesnar's a one-trick pony, but he does that trick very well, and it also happens to be the Achilles heel of his opponent. Overeem's been training at Extreme Couture in preparation for this bout, but his camp has been interrupted. Overeem doesn't have the wrestling background of Lesnar's last two opponents to help him defend the takedown. He is physically strong, but so is Lesnar, along with skill and surprising speed. Overeem's focus on defending the takedown could even create an opportunity for Lesnar to land a punch or two. Alistair's cardio didn't look good in his last fight, despite a slow pace. Conversely, pre-diverticulitis Brock was able to fight bell to bell, and Frank Mir has talked about how heavy Lesnar is when he gets on top. Look for Brock to cover up, push forward, drag Overeem to the mat, and beat him up. Even if Overeem survives round 1, his gas tank will be on empty, making another takedown almost inevitable. I am concerned by the ring rust and how well Brock has recovered from his illness, but I'm still willing to take the underdog, Brock Lesnar, to defeat Alistair Overeem by TKO. Alright, welcome back to Kamikaze Countdown. I want to talk about Zuffa and UFC's decision to nullify and absorb the Strikeforce heavyweight division. I think this is a fantastic move on their part. They are 100% right in saying the heavyweight division is not deep enough to maintain two competitive divisions, and I think it's very interesting. It's going to create some very good matchups. They're already starting to bring guys over. I fully expected guys like LeVar Johnson, Devin Cole, and even Gabriel Salas-Jones to come over. Johnson's already got his first fight lined up. These guys will get at least one, maybe two fights in the UFC. At the very least, they will serve for fodder for other heavyweights they're looking to build up, so that guys aren't sitting there beating each other up and knocking themselves out of contention while trying to find a contender. Because in all reality, there isn't a huge list of contenders if you don't merge the divisions. This fight, Lesnar-Overeem, will obviously produce the first contender for the division. You'd have to assume that the winner of Barnett Cormier, the tournament finals, will certainly be in the running. Frank Mir with the big submission win has his name up there, potentially for number one contenders fight. Cain Velasquez, when he gets himself back circulating, gets a couple wins under his belt, will be looking to avenge his loss and get his title back. A couple interesting bouts. Chad Griggs, very excited he's coming over. I would love to see Chad Griggs versus Joey Beltran. Dana White make that fight happen. Antonio Silva heading over. Maybe Antonio Silva versus Brendan Schaub or Matt Mitrione. I think that'd be a very good fight. Again, one of those guys getting a win and getting back in the push of things. Fabricio Verdum versus Roy Nelson should provide a very good matchup. Both guys skilled on the mat. I expect Verdum to really push the pace after a lackluster performance the last time we saw him. Roy Nelson, winning that fight, can get himself back in the conversation as a top contender. We already saw him go toe-to-toe with Junior Dos Santos and hold his own. We'll see what a in-shape Roy Nelson can do. Either way, 2012 is going to be a dynamite year. 2012 could very well be the year of the heavyweight. Thanks for listening, Kamikaze Countdown. Alright, so those are my predictions for UFC 141. Again, this event takes place on a Friday, December 30th, not the Saturday. Saturday's New Year's Eve. Do not miss the show on Friday. I can't stress that enough. If you are in our prediction tournament, make sure you get your picks in. It would be a real shame to get all the way to the final event of the third round and then get knocked out because you didn't send your picks in, so please submit them. Sports Interaction, check them out. MMABettingOdds.com, again, fantastic site with all kinds of tools to help you prepare to make the most possible money off any event. MMA Crips, again, I appreciate all the support and posting my video on your main page. Fight Metric, thank you for the statistics. I think that's enough for me. Again, Kamikaze Overdrive MMA predictions for UFC 141. I'm Scott Johnson, and now I'm out of here.